Cool. Hello. This is Emma and Alice today, and we're with Chuck. If you don't know Chuck, he is an American photographer and long-time educator, and initially within schools and now within the documentary photography community. And he's an all-round lovely guy. And he's here with us today. We're going to do a sort of chatty critique. It's been rebranded as chatty critique because we're going to chit chat and critique at the same time. So we've got about a dozen photos that have been submitted. So we'll work our way through those. I'll pull them up on Photo Mechanic, and then Chuck, you can pick ones that you think you'd like to talk about. We'll just go through them, and we might end up
a lot of pressure.
Yeah. we might end up getting through all of them. We might not. So we'll just see how we get on.
And if anyone has any questions as we're going, or if you see your photo and you'd like to say it's yours, or tell us anything about it, or respond to anything, then just post in the group, and I'll keep an eye on that as we go.
Okay. So shall I share my screen? See. There we go. Can you see that, Chuck?
Yes.
Cool. So I don't know, is there any there that put that side? Make these a bit bigger so you can. Is there any there that you fancy pulling out to talk about first of all?
I think maybe we should just work our way through. All right.
You want to just go from the beginning? Okay.
Yeah, I think so, right?
Okay, just a second. I'm going to have to stop sharing again.
Should we just say a few words about the point of critiquing and
what
the aim is? So one thing is, the aim isn't to criticise anything that's already happened for the sake of it. It's about learning what you could do next time to make your picture even stronger. But more so, watching someone else's work be critiqued is about learning something that you can take into your own work.
Yeah.
And we just had a really interesting chat that actually we said we should have this again when we go live. But you've got some feelings about how you like to critique, haven't you?
Yeah, so I guess maybe a little bit about my background. I was a high school teacher since 1999. Wow, that makes me sound really old. I went like back a millennium to talk about my professional experience, so I'm old. Been doing this a while.
And you're the youngest one of the three of us.
That's funny. So
no, it isn't.
I guess it's been ingrained over my 22-year career as an educator. Obviously, students are submitting work that they're trying a lot of times a new concept. I taught mainly the 11th grade level, so 16, 17-year-old students a lot of times. So, a lot of times we're trying to refine things and we're trying to work on specific skills. And that student is then submitting their work, and I am, of course, grading it and giving feedback. So one of the things I sort of kind of picked up and learned over time is I feel like I got a lot further with students by focusing on what students did really well than just completely shredding all the things they didn't do well. Of course, there's a line, I think, for that, right? I think that if there's something that's just being done that's just egregiously not a good practice, I think that obviously needs to be pointed out. But I think that for the most part, working with students, I think to get further, I feel like working on a process and working on things that you do really well will really help a voice emerge long term. And the frustrating thing with that is it's not immediate. It takes time. I definitely understand that. But that's why I believe so much in process, because it really does work. If you stick with something consistently with a process, it does work. So, and if you focus on things that you're doing well, your voice will sort of emerge organically down the road. So at least that's kind of my approach on critique. That's not to say that, we don't address things that we feel like can be improved, but I generally take a more positive facing approach to critique than maybe some other people might. And that could just be as my background as an educator. You know, I don't have an art background. I didn't learn in art school. You know, I am self-taught aside from having a few mentors and a few classes. But I'm self-taught for the most part. And so, yeah, so I think my approach to critique might be maybe a little bit different. So, you know, that's kind of what we were talking about beforehand. So that makes sense, Alice? Yeah?
Yeah, totally. I think everyone brings their own style to critiquing as well.
Another thing that we were talking about was that, so when you first have your work critique, it's really easy to feel really defensive and say, oh no, but I did that because of this. And I think it's really important to try not to do that. The more you do it, the more confidence, the more confident you are, or the more you understand the process of being critiqued and the benefits, because you start realizing that you're taking things away from it. And so it's really important to try and be open-minded and not be defensive, because then you can listen to the advice given and take it away and learn, rather than trying to say, no, but I did that because of this. Try and pick out the advice instead.
And watching other people's work being critiqued, that emotional element isn't there, probably. So it's easier to kind of get to that stage with it. And then I think you start to think, okay, well, what would I have done differently? And learning from watching other people's work can be great. So we hope this is going to be useful for everybody. And thank you to everyone who sent work in. And if you want to shout that it's yours, feel free to do that. I'll keep an eye on the comments. Okay, so we're just going to try and work through from the beginning to end. So this is the first one.
Yeah, so I really love the scene. I think that this is the light's fantastic. I love that warm light that's kind of pouring in the morning. You know, it's a really, really aesthetically pleasing scene to my eye. The color palette's really beautiful. It's almost sort of monochromatic, except for the key elements of the frame, which I really appreciate. So I really enjoy all of that. Like, light is hitting all of those beautiful elements just right. It's beautiful directional light. So, you know, this scene here to me is just really aesthetically pleasing in terms of just kind of taking it in. So, you know, I really enjoy all of that. So, you know, a lot of times I think when I'm looking at images, especially of photographers, I don't know who this is. I don't know their entire scope of work. So I think sometimes critique can be unjustly harsh because of where this just one frame out of hundreds of thousands of frames that this particular photographer has taken is just plucked and put in front of strangers' eyes. So it is a little bit out of context for me as a stranger to view this outside of an entire body of work. So I you know, we were talking earlier about critique. So I think that one of the things with critique is you get it, the viewer and the listener gets an opportunity to say, I value that part of the critique, and I want to take this part with me. And you can also, you have the power to ultimately say, I don't agree with this, and you don't have to take that with you. So I kind of like that about critique. So anyway, sorry, I got off on a little bit of a tangent there, but you know, I guess before I get into what I think can be improved here, I just wanted to kind of put that out there in general, that we're looking at these in a vacuum, plucked out of context of entire bodies of work. And I think that's really important. So, you know, I don't know if this photographer was trying something really new here, or if this is their standard best work. So with that said, I'm going to kind of critique what I see in front of my eyes here. So, you know, with this image here, again, speaking on the light, I feel like this is a light-driven photo, that this photographer recognized some really strong directional, really beautiful directional light. I love that. It's a really good base to start with building your scene, is this exact scene that this photographer captured here. What I think it's missing here mostly is a moment. I think as an outside viewer, not knowing the subject here, not knowing the photographer, I want to know, like, why, right? Why? What is it about this image that is unique or special or compelling, or I don't mean it this harsh, but worth looking at? Like, why should I look at this longer? And, you know, after noticing the light, I'm looking for moment. and I don't see a really strong moment here. Now, that's not to say that every image needs a strong moment. For this particular image here, I don't see a really super strong moment. What I'm guessing here is I see a sandwich in the hand, some art supplies out. This looks like my house, really. Just stuff on the table, a child eating and coloring possibly, or something like that. But there's not a whole lot happening here in the scene. So I don't have a whole sense of, either a good sense as to what's happening here, a good sense of moment. The eye contact doesn't bother me a whole lot, because I think that it's kind of neat. We hear a lot of times that we need to get ourselves in the frame. And I think sometimes we think about that like literally, like we have to put our camera down, put the timer on, run around and jump in front of the picture. And then that's always interesting to me, because it's like we're faking like a real interaction. Like our whole genre is based on being real. And then we set our camera up and we run in front to get into the frame. And I think there's value in doing that. But I think there's some other ways to get into the frame, and eye contact can be one of them. So I don't mind the eye contact so much. We are humans that are in the room. So, when we do catch a gaze or when we do catch a stare, it's almost like we are now in the frame. We are participants in this frame, because that, as parents, a lot of times we are actually participants in what our children are doing. So I don't mind it so much here. But, with that said, I think I would prefer, a stronger moment. And I guess that's the tricky thing, right? Is that you stay here. I guess that's another question that I would have for the photographer as well. You're here, you see this scene, and you chose this composition. How long did the photographer wait for something else to happen? Did they snap this photo and move on? So, I think there's a really good base for a good image in here. I'm just not convinced that this is the best, that this scene developed the best. That's not to say that the photographer didn't do what they could do, but because again, Alice, I like what you said earlier. It's hard to go back. So it's like you can't give a critique like, gee, I wish the kid was standing on the table. Like, well, he wasn't.
He wasn't standing on the table.
He wasn't standing
but
on the
then
table.
if it's personal work, and we were talking about how a lot of work this last year is personal, depending on where you are. Brexit Island over here, quite a lot of it is. Plague Island rather. This is going to happen again. This is going to happen every day, maybe, and you've got the opportunity to do it again. The light's going to hit at the same time of day. I did wonder with this, because there's 2 cups on the table and there's a book, whether the photographer was sitting at the table and had got up to take it. And in that sense, the photographer is in there, the parent is in the picture. I quite like pictures like that sometimes, where you can see the space the photographer as parent left behind, an empty chair in a scene where that person was obviously sitting there a minute ago. That can be quite strong. Or it could be that it's just a book on the table. And one thing, the light is beautiful. One thing I see when I look at this is there's a smaller picture in there. If you go much closer in, I'm pointing at the screen, which nobody can see.
Alice, I'm curious to see what you say, because I see something too. So I want to see where you.
So I love patterns and graphical elements in photography, and I love color matching. And you've got the light, so the kid's face is in the perfect place for light, the color of the hair and the color of the light on the wall, the time of day it is, the light is warm, the color of the orange cup and the sandwich, and also the dog, I think, on the book on the table. You've got potential for a closer picture with all these color matches in, and then that has a different mood to it. And I'm not quite sure about the eye contact. I do wonder if the kid is doing that halfway through a sandwich staring into space thing that my kid does sometimes. Oh, don't we all?
Right. It's an intentional gaze to me, but maybe has been, I don't know, maybe there's been some voice contact with the photographer whilst he's eating, because it does look like his cheeks got sandwiched.
I couldn't quite see
the way that I do like the trail of light that runs through the image from left to right, I like this sort of triangle shape here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether you can see that. Let me annotate.
Yeah.
Sort
You could you could do even closer and just have head, hand, the line with the clock as well.
That's actually really interesting, because I did not see that. It's funny, because a lot of times I talk about elements of composition. What are the elements that are present in the frame? And I actually chose a bit of a different composition than what you lady. I really love what Emma, you did with that crop. That's really interesting. I didn't kind of see that, but the eye really did go really nice through the frame that way. So it's really well done. The crop that I was sort of looking at was, so the element of composition that you would have introduced there would have been like shapes and patterns, which I think are always interesting and compelling to look at. Like Alice said, graphical elements, right? Another element that is sort of present too, it would require a crop as well, is sort of simplicity. So I think a crop from maybe, yep, right about there.
I feel like there's this, if you're keeping it very much as it
Yep.
is, do you want to come down? Because
no, just to maybe where, yeah, right around there, something like, yep, something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But because the other thing about the actual frame as it is, without changing it dramatically, there's this messy edge here, which is really distracting. So even like a very gentle crop makes a difference, I think.
So there's two reasons that's distracting. So one is because it's quite bright, and we look at the bright bits, even though there are quite a lot of bright bits, that particular bright bit isn't
right on the edge. You really know
yeah.
it's not pretty like this one that is connected here, this stream of light.
It's a cold light, and it doesn't match the rest of the light, and the tip of the chair under it is the same. It's kind of distracting. And the other reason is because it's not straight, and the nearer to the camera a straight line is, the more it will distort. So can we talk about whether like transforming straight lines a bit? That's something I've got a bit OCD about, I think, these days, but I didn't used to.
So can I just say as well, if you just, without doing any dramatic change like we were talking about earlier, this just brings the boy into the center of the frame as well. Whereas like that, not only do you have this distracting element here on the left, you also have him very slightly off center, which feels it's not enough central and it's not enough to the side. I don't know. I think it just tightens it up as well without doing anything dramatic. Yeah, sorry, Alice.
Yeah. So to transform or not to transform? Some people do, some people don't. What do you do, Chuck?
I transform. Most times, if I'm squared up to a frame, just like this photographer, I'm absolutely transforming and straightening my lines. Remember, like in terms of it being, whether that crosses the line of documentary, not documentary, our lenses are round and we're shooting square frames. So distortion is inevitable. It's nothing the photographer can really do to change that. So that to me doesn't alter an image. Now, again, I don't know how, hardcore to the rules you're trying to be, or how the photographer's trying to be. For my purposes, I straighten. But if I'm on a diagonal, a lot of times I won't be, unless it's something where, maybe like corners are coming in or something like that. So I will transform for sure.
And if you don't,
it depends whether you're using the lines as a compositional element. If you're trying to get some sort of purposely angling like to the corner of a room or something like that, so you've got diagonal lines.
You in.
But this is a straight on composition, so I feel like it's less noticeable on the right, but I feel like it's straightened.
Yeah, because the person standing kind of in the middle, vertically in the middle, you get less distortion if you're in the middle. So if you're doing a kid's eye view and you're lower down, then you're going to get a lot of distortion at the top. So if you don't want to distort, you don't want to transform, and you don't want those lines, and avoiding them if you are not vertically in the middle is one way to do it.
Yeah. Emma, would you mind going back to the uncropped? Sorry, Alice, did I cut you off? I'm sorry.
No, I just say I love the light on this one.
Yeah, can you go back to being fully uncropped? Because I think Alice's crop was super interesting, and I, as a photographer, I can tell you right now, I would have never seen that as a photographer, like in this scene. And I really think that's a brilliant crop that Alice had. In this scene here.
I was actually thinking smaller. So I would go, yeah, so about there, and then it kind of, yeah, something like that, or even without the right sort of staying on the wall like that, maybe. Or even shooting it from closer and higher up, maybe, because then the basket, then the tub of pens is too big. So actually, take the tub of pens out, and it's just face sandwich cup, maybe from down like this.
Yeah, that can be interesting.
I like the version with the second blob of light on the wall as well. I really love details, and sometimes I don't always see it that in the moment, and I'll take a wider picture. I'm like, oh, that detail would be great, but you can't actually, of course, crop.
Yeah.
Crazy that. So I'm trying to see them better in real life.
Emma, what I was going to say was, if you go back uncropped for a second. So I think one of the things I was talking about earlier, I think this photographer has a really good foundation. So I guess let me step back for one second here. So we've established that it would be nice, right, if we could have mental powers to control our subjects and make them do that one thing that we want them to do that they never do. So of course we can't do that, right? This kid's going to eat his lunch, and he's going to, finish up, and he's going to decide to look at you, and we're not going to have any control over that, right? So what we can control is our intentions and what we intend to make out of this image here. So for me, I think that it comes down to something called, something I talk about, what we're deciding to include and exclude, inclusions and exclusions. What are we deciding to include in the frame, and what are we deciding to exclude in the frame? For me, I think this photographer tried to include too much stuff, right? Starting from left to right, on the far left, we have the window thing, right? So, and I get it. When scenes are moving fast, we're not going to always see that, right? But in a scene here where our subject's static, to get better, we need to see that and take one step forward and get that out of the frame. Because if we look at that window, is it contributing anything to the picture? No. So if it's not, let's get rid of it, right? If it's not contributing to what's happening in the frame, it's extraneous, and we should crop it. And not by crop it after the fact. I'm talking about cropping it while we're shooting, right?
Yeah.
So that, okay, so we take that step in. So Emma, if you will, can you crop just out, not the dramatic crop, just, yep, get rid of that. Okay, and then, yep, perfect. Okay, so now we have this crop. Okay, so now we talk inclusions, exclusions. So it goes back to intent. So if, let's say there are siblings in the other room, and they're just running around like wild banshees while the calm son sits at the table, right? Then I love this composition. If this photographer is waiting for a kid or an adult to walk by out of that other room, then I love this composition. If this photographer is home alone and this is the only kid, then for me, I feel like too much is included that does not contribute to the scene. So in that case there, exactly right. I would pull that up and go to, this is at least how my mind would work in this scene.
So I'm going to have to clear it.
Because I want to be clear, I love, if what I just said is true, exactly, that's where my picture would be. That's the way I would probably shoot this. Just to back up, I love the idea, if that photographer was waiting for a kid to come running around that corner, brilliant, I love it. That's where my mind goes first. I have 3 sons of my own. I get a little bored by single subject pictures. I just do. And that's just me personally after having done this for going on 18 years. I like chaotic, big scenes. So if the intention was for a sibling or another parent to come around the corner, then that initial composition is really strong. If they know nothing's happening, then we need to exclude that other stuff. And then maybe I go to simplicity, which is another element of composition that Emma has here. And the simplicity is, hey, this kid's all alone at the table eating lunch. And that little bit of negative space really helps give that mood to
Feel alone. It feels then like which I suspect it could be homeschooling on your own, and it's lunchtime, and it's not like a school lunchtime, so there's an element of story that's been added there, given the situation. I think as well there's a danger when you're first getting to grips with light and you see beautiful light like this, there's a danger to compose or take an image because it's like, oh, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. The light's so pretty. Oh, look, it's such a pretty picture because I've got such pretty light. But it's missing an element because you've been taken over by the feeling of what light does and the excitement of that, and forgotten that it needs something else.
I mean,
the subject and the action has to match the light.
Yeah,
it has to all, like the mood overall comes together, and I kind of think that does. I love that small look up as well because you see the absent parent if that is what's happened.
I love that as the way the light is catching all of the different elements, and particularly the book. I love the shape of the book anyway, but and you've got the reflection of the book as well, which is really lovely.
Yeah, and that brings up a really good point that you mentioned. So, and that kind of goes back to what I said earlier, where if this photographer is a newer photographer and they have been shooting in crappy light for months and months and months, and this was their first time that they saw the light, then for me this is a huge win. Yeah, right. Like, this would be a huge win for that photographer. So, you know, depending on where this photographer is on their journey, I think
exactly, because that then it's like you know, when you suddenly start noticing light, it's like a really eureka moment, and it takes over everything for a while.
Emma, you're so right. That brought me back to I can remember it. So I have like a basement office. My kitchen's like right there, and you know, I'm talking like 18 years ago, 17 years ago. I remember like seeing side light for the first time, and I remember I did exactly what you just said, Emma. I'm like, oh, this light is incredible. The content of my image was terrible, but I saw the light, and I was like, for me at that time, that was a huge win, right? So
that's a huge step forward, isn't it? That
absolutely.
But not only that, in this, like, I'm sure in the reality of the situation, there's being able to recognize the beautiful light, but it also, our eye adapts the light and dark. It exposes for the whole scene. So what's great about this is that they've recognized that it's beautiful light and that you can use your camera to accentuate that and bring out the light and darken the rest of the details. So that's really great. And they've not flattened the light and lost the beauty of this directional light and the warmth of it. But going forward from that, it needs to include something active, something more dynamic happening in the image.
Absolutely. Yeah, and for me, I think the takeaways, one thing I might add just for this photographer here is focus on your inclusions and exclusions. What are you putting in the frame? What are you leaving out? You know, my general rule of thumb is if it doesn't add to the story, I take a step in or I recompose or whatever it is. You know, so inclusions, exclusions, and you know, my question for this photographer would be, how long did you wait on this scene? You know, I would really preach patience on this scene because I don't know, maybe it's the tricky thing. It's the unknown, right? We don't know what's going to happen next. So if we stay here and wait, maybe he drops his sandwich. Maybe if there's a pet in the house, it comes up and, you know, bites the sandwich. Or like, you know, I don't know. And then what you have is a pretty good composition with really good light and a moment. Right.
Yeah. And also, I mean, the other thing, it obviously depends on the scene, but this is, like I said, is quite, this appears like it's something that's going to carry on happening for a while because he's sitting, eating something at the table. It's not something that's just going to pass, where you have to make quicker decisions. This, you have got the luxury of time where you can pace yourself, think about it, slow down, step in, recompose a bit, and think about what you're trying to say.
Let's go on to the next one because we haven't got the luxury.
Yeah. Good point.
Okay. So
is this really small? Can we make it any bigger?
This
Was it a small file?
sent small. Let me increase. Okay,
There
now.
you go.
Okay.
So this is a fun image. You know, it brought an instant smile to my face. I have sons myself, and you know, it's a really relatable image here. Like Alice said earlier, I'm a fan of graphic things in frames. I really like graphic elements in frames, and when somebody can marry both a graphic element and a moment together, that's when sort of magical things happen, and we get these really great images, right? So, you know, for this image here, this reminds me of an image I would take, you know, a little bit earlier on in my career, and I'd be really happy with it. And this photographer should be really happy with this. This is a fun image that's going to be fun today. And if I'm assuming these two are brothers or related or even friends, this is going to be even better in 10 years and even better in 20 years. You know, and I can tell you from experience, you know, some of the images that I have of my children when they were very little. I have an older son who's 16. I have a nephew who I raised who is 18 now, and I photographed them their whole life. These images here are absolutely beautiful, and I love having them. So what I would sort of recommend maybe for this photographer here, this seems a bit like a reactionary image. It doesn't seem like an image that was made. Okay. Now there's a good reason why we react a lot of times, right? When something happens really quick, we turn and we shoot. We don't think about composition. We don't think about our inclusions and exclusions. We don't think about any of that stuff. We turn and we react and we shoot, right? So that's okay. I think there's a place for that. What I would advise and what I would suggest to a photographer who is in a scene like this is you know the game and you know something's going to come, right? Like, so that's what the advantage we have here, right? We have an advantage that we know that something fun is going to happen. So what I would suggest for this photographer here is to sort of pick a more dynamic composition to begin with and anticipate the action. To me, this seems like a reaction, like almost like maybe the photographer was a little surprised that this happened and they were just going to take a quick photo. This doesn't seem like a photo that was made. It seems like a photo that was taken. So, you know, moving forward, what I might suggest for this photographer is a bit of a more dynamic, you know, maybe it's on a table. Maybe they swing left, get real low, right? Like get their camera really low to the table and shoot up a little bit as this is going to happen. And I think that would sort of, you know, I don't mind background clutter because it's context, right? This is context to where this is taking place, all the stuff that's in the background here. But a scene like this might be better simplified. It might be better with less context because it's about, to me, this image isn't really about the context. It's about the action, which is the whipped cream in the face, which is brilliant. And the reaction of the boy on the right of the frame. It's about action reaction. So I would want that really to hit me in the face as a viewer with a bit of a more dynamic composition. And I think that could be achieved pretty easily by just maybe getting lower and simplifying the whole scene.
I'm thinking about exclusions and inclusions. I'm looking at the cream on the bottom left. That adds something because it has a face on it and the game has a face, but it also, I'm not sure it's completely necessary because you do have the cream all over the kid's face. And the bike in the background I find very distracting because it's got two circles and there are quite a lot of circles. You've got the two circles on the eyes of the cream and the game spinny thing, the kid's top. And it just makes me notice the bike even more. So sometimes I think you include something and it might add something in itself, but it can cause a negative somewhere else. It makes you look at something else too much. And yeah, I just want it down a little bit so the orange boy's hand is either in it or not in it. And there's obviously cream all over the table, and it would be, I think I'd rather have the cream all over the table than the thingy.
Very scientific.
Of cream. I don't know what you call it. Can, it's not a can.
It's a squirter or something. Yeah. Sorry, I had to change rooms in the middle of the time mixed up from my daughter's Zoom, so I've just changed it. So yeah, I haven't totally been listening because I've been trying to, but so I don't know how I'm going to say again. But I think sometimes in this sort of situation, when you're playing a game, and this is where you're sitting, so you're taking a picture because you're sitting in the game, playing the game, and taking a picture of the game rather than creating a photograph and moving to get the best photograph. So I think you have to decide at this point: are you just taking a picture of the game to remember it, or do you want to create a great photograph? In which case, you need to, rather than just take a picture from where you're sitting without any sort of repositioning or anything, or are you going to try and create a picture that's including elements and showing the game off or the moment off to its best? In which case, you need to slightly shift yourself and move yourself down, looking upwards to the left, and start including the mess on the table and not the background and the expressions, and try and catch the moment when it's actually flying through the air, those sort of things. Because it looks like it's where the person is sitting playing the game.
And that's another good, the moment. So if there's a thing, a funny thing, or a moment where something hits something, it's not always the moment as it has hit, which is the strongest. The tiny little moment just before is often, I think, much stronger, because as the viewer, you then have that moment of anticipation, oh, it's going to hit his face, which I think is stronger than, oh, it's just hit his face sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. There's tension there, isn't there?
And
that's true for all sort, like the body language as well, of something rising to a moment and the falling away from the moment. And if you think of that sort of rising up and the falling down, you become more floppy and loses any sort of tension in your body and things. So the build up to something has always got a little bit more, just a little bit more spice to it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. One thing I would say to this photographer is, to really treat your frame, really treat the real estate of your frame as valuable, right? So we only have this. Am I doing that right? The like the movie thing, like cropping, right? We only have so much, right? We only have so much frame. So what we decide to put into it should matter. There should be value there, right? So I look at like you said, Alice, the face there. I didn't notice that face on the whipped cream. I just wanted to get rid of it, just because I don't need it, because there's clearly whipped cream in the picture. It doesn't really add to it. But you gave me an idea. If there's a face on it, I wonder if that photographer could have included the face, 3 faces, right? And create a little triangle out of it, right? The face of the whipped cream, the face of the boy getting the whipped cream, and the face of the boy reacting. I wonder if there's a composition there. But to me, I think this photographer, if we hear rule of thirds, right? So, Emma, can you put a rule of thirds grid on here?
Not on here, no. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. So we can all picture the rule of thirds grid, right? So if we start,
hold on, I could draw.
Yeah. We're gonna give you marks for how straight it is.
Fancy.
How good's my...
Yeah. You could just leave it like that. Yeah, you can leave that. That's fine.
That's a drink.
Sort of. Does that work? Sometimes better.
So, that was good.
Okay.
Yeah. That's perfect. And then just one more. Just draw the vertical ones. Okay. So, in terms of, we all heard rule of thirds, right? And this isn't a rule of thirds picture, but I want to just use the rule of thirds to demonstrate something real quick in terms of visual weight. In terms of visual weight, if we start left to right, that whole left 1/3 of our frame is, in my opinion, useless information, right? And then we have it, so it creates imbalance, right? And this is, I guess, what I was saying earlier. It creates this to me is definitely an image where we reacted to it, and that's totally fine, right? But to make this picture better, I think that we really have to be conscious of what we put in the frame and where we put it, and paying attention to visual weight. There's way too much visual weight giving to nothing that contributes to this picture here. And that's what, when Alice first said that the whipped cream bottle has a face on it, that's where my mind went. Like, okay, fine. If you're gonna treat it like left third, middle third, right third, that's fine. But then make your left third say something. Your left third here is saying nothing.
It's interesting. Can I just go back to hold on. Ooh. Can I get this to go now or not? Yeah, no. Okay. I'm going to have to go back to the other picture. Don't know if I can get rid of those lines now.
Every picture now is going to have your lines on it.
Let me see. Right, I'm going to stop share. I'm going to have to literally go out the whole thing.
Do I have to like tap dance?
I can go back in now. I just wanted to go back to this one because we were talking about visual weight and rule of thirds, and we cropped this one here. Like this, we were talking about the top here, and there's nothing in this bit, but this adds to the story. Correct. In this image.
Absolutely.
So it carries weight because it is talking about being alone. So this part of the image, although there's nothing there, there's meaning to it.
100%.
It's got mood in it, hasn't it? It's got,
and that's the power of, when we talk about elements of composition, that's the power of simplicity. Is, I always say that images that have simplicity is like writing a sentence with a few words that says a lot. So, we're trying to write sentences with our pictures, right? And if we can do it in a few words, that's really easy for people to digest. And when we do that, our images start to become universal and you start to connect with your audience. So yeah, anyway, that's a great example, Emma, and I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, it just seemed relevant. So, because on here you've got this third here.
Yep.
The thing that possibly could add to this third is actually a distracting element in the bottom corner because of the positioning of the camera and the elements in the frame. So to use this third, you need to be moving yourself down and left to include this extra face, or recompose so that third isn't in the frame.
Yep.
Shall we go on to the next one?
Let's do it. All right, Alice, you go first.
Is that all of it?
It might.
Looking at the thumbnail, it looks like it's not. There we go.
Yeah, sorry, the other one was really small.
So this takes a minute to read, doesn't it? It's upside down in a puddle, but the house is the right way up.
No, I think
it's an inverted image, isn't it?
I think this image has been flipped 180, which I think is a great choice.
Look at it,
No, you got it right, Alice, but it's flipped 180 and the cropping of the girl's feet, or I guess it's a girl or a boy's feet, is underneath it, but we can't see it. So it's flipped 180, which I think is a good choice.
So I really like this straight away. It has a lot of impact straight away. And so a kind of golden rule, sometimes it's got to be readable, but actually if there's an abstract element to it, I don't think it necessarily has to be. I quite like sometimes that you go, I don't know quite what I'm looking at, but I like it. I think that's a valid thing. Yeah. If there's action or emotion and you can't read the action or the emotion well, that's a whole different thing, because then the intention of the photograph hasn't been clearly included. But I love the artfulness of this. I love how the kid, the feet are just inside the puddle with a little bit of space. I kind of wish, on looking at it visually, the right hand was in it as well. But I love how the hood is, again, just inside it. I like the toning of it. My oil is being delivered right now. And I'm the only one in the house because I'm doing this. I have to kind of keep an eye on that.
We got your back. We got your back.
So there's a man in my garden who I don't know, but I'm sure he's fine.
Do you have to go take care of it?
No, I think he's all right. I was wondering if it was a little bit blown out, but I don't think it is on the top of the house.
Doesn't look like it to me. If anything, I think the blacks have been flattened. I think they possibly could lift I don't know, I feel like the curve has been moved,
crushed a little bit.
Yes, you've lost because here you can just about see it's a puffer jacket. You can almost see the face. It'd be nice if there's a little bit more detail in there, I think.
Yeah, so I think the exposure is really good. I like the toning of it. I like the detail in it. I think it's cool. It's not a self-portrait, is it?
It looks like a child jumping.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like puddle jumping inverted. You know, they're jumping in puddles.
Wow. I really like the lines of the windows, the parallel lines of the window. I'm drawing on the screen with my mouse. The windows on the top of the house coming down across the shape of the puddle, paralleling kind of with the sort of the black streak in the bottom right. Yeah, the shapes. So I like this because I like graphical lines and shapes in pictures. And the silhouette, I think the exposure is really good. I wish it was just like the right hand was just a little bit more in. But
yeah, I think that those are things. I mean, really,
sorry.
Yeah, maybe a little bit different positioning so you could see it, but I don't know. I that doesn't bother me so much because it's a reflection rather than it's being cropped out of the frame. You know, so if the hand had been missed, like, you know, where I'm, like, you know, the fingers cropped off, like my hand is here.
Yeah,
that's different to the fact that it's coming out of the puddle, because it's not actually cropped out of the frame, it's just not in the puddle. So I don't find that so distracting.
I agree with you, Emma. It's not a huge deal. You know, this is something I've stopped fussing about chopped stuff, you know, a long time ago. You know, if I'm able to, you know, I think we have to give ourselves some grace in our genre a little bit, because I think in documentary photography, I think it's the toughest genre of photography because we have no control over our subjects. So that's why I really preach process, because we have to control ourselves, because we can't control the scene. So a little nit like that, like a little hand off, is not going to ruin an image like this for me.
Because the hand isn't actually cropped off the frame; it's just
correct.
The angle of where you're standing in relation to the puddle. So
Vicky's commented, it's not a self-portrait. No, my daughter was just about to jump in the puddle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, you know, I look at documentary images in terms of a couple neat. I think for an image to be a really good documentary image, it has to contain a few things. And one of them is a strong sense of timing. And for me, this photographer nails the timing. I love the inverted 180. I recommend that a lot sometimes to some photographers to, you know, think about it, right? Think about the way our mind works when we're scrolling through our Instagram feed. We're sitting there and we're just kind of scrolling. I think sometimes in order for us to stop our scroll, as we say sometimes, we need a couple things to jar our sort of our mind to double tap it or to spend a little bit more time with it. And I think when inverting here's a good choice. I think that does that for me. And Alice proved it, right? When she first looked at it, she's like, wait, I need a second here. And, you know, she's going like this to see it. So I think it's a really good choice. And I think it's a really strong sense of timing here. You both pointed out that I like the flow of the image too. It's got that really nice diagonal sense to it. So it's got a good flow to it. For me, I think that what's potentially missing here, and again, depending on where this photographer is on their journey, if they're a relatively newer photographer, I think this is a really good base for a really strong, potentially strong image, right? This same concept can be applicable. Like for me, what I want to see here is there's another puddle to the far left. There's a puddle toward the bottom. There's another puddle toward the top. My mind starts to look for things in there, right? Maybe a plane. Maybe I can see a plane in one of the reflection of a plane up in the sky. Maybe the reflection of another figure. Maybe a bike laying down on the ground. For me, I need something else, right? To really keep me in this image. I think it's a good base. I would advise this photographer to keep driving at this idea and then try to be patient and put something else in this. Maybe there's cars driving by in traffic and cars are splashing the puddles. And now you have a more dynamic where a car splashed the puddle and the puddle has ripples to it. And there's just another element of movement, but that's what I want to see is more.
Do you want to see more because the composition is that bit wider? If it was tighter and you didn't have the bits of the other puddles, would you be happy with it smaller?
I think I would just be bored by it if it were smaller. I think I like the scale of this image. I like the scale of it. I like the scale of the figure in the frame. It's a pretty good size where environment kind of matters a little bit. So I think concept is good. I would encourage this photographer to keep driving at this concept, but then push more, right? Like what else can you put in these little puddles? What other element can you put in the frame?
I think that, things like if there's something in the other puddles as well, if you've got like litter or a leaf or something like that, which then becomes even more confusing to the brain when you've inverted it. And why is that there?
Right.
When the human and the house are the right way up, why is that there? I think it's a bit like the other image where we were talking about, how you can become overly obsessed with light. If you become overly obsessed with composition, you also start lacking something. This does have a nice moment with her jumping, but yeah, I like the idea of if there was something like a splash happening somewhere, would be really nice. I was thinking like if she'd been constantly if she had been jumping up and down, if there's some sort of splash coming out. Underneath.
I quite like that there isn't a splash because it's a weird jump and it's a weird picture. And to start with, it's
always when you convert things, it always feels weird to your brain, doesn't it? So it always challenges your brain to understand.
So I
where they are.
quite like it's like a jump without a splash. I like this.
Yeah, Alice, I think this hits. I think the timing is really strong. Because I agree with what you said earlier about the moment right before the moment. That's like in my wedding work. I don't love the kiss. I love right before the kiss and I love right after the kiss, right? Like same sort of thing with this here. So I agree the sense of anticipation is really cool here. I guess what I wanted to add is I look through photography books quite a bit. I got several new ones for the holidays and I'm just kind of working my way through them now. And one of them is, of course, Alex Webb's Istanbul, which was like a landmark book for him, his work in Istanbul. I'm just kind of working through a couple pages at a time. We all admire work that's complex and deep. We want our work to be that way. So if we want it to be that way, we have to find compositions that have these little pockets, just like this photographer did. You have your main pocket where your main subject is, and then you have these little pockets where, and again, I'm not saying something can and will happen there. I'm not even really necessarily talking about this particular image, but the concept is good. And that's why if you work process, if you take this process here and now apply that to where maybe there's a reflection over here and a window over here and your main subject in the middle, you can kind of look at those things and end up with a really complex composition. So that's what I would encourage this photographer to do, is just maybe add more to this frame.
And we talk a minute about process, because you talk about it's a lot, Chuck, and when you teach or you mentor, that it's not working on your photography isn't about creating great photographs. It's about going through the motions, the process of taking them and learning from the process, not from the photograph. Have I been listening? Is that right?
Yes, you have. You did. That was perfect, Alice. How did you know all that? How did you?
Mentor, I don't know.
Good. So one of the things I really like about this as well, I don't know what it is, but it looks like she's got a little butterfly in her hand here.
Yeah, I wondered what that was.
I don't know whether it's a mark in the puddle, but it's really pretty. Teeny weeny little thing, but I keep getting drawn to that.
Yeah, like we're never as skilled as we are today, right? So we're at our most skilled today. The goal is to be at our most skilled tomorrow, right? So it's to keep at this, to keep at the grind and keep internalizing what you're doing and where you want to be. And next thing you know, you end up with a body of work that you're really super proud of, right? Like I it's a weird thing because nobody ever picks up the camera to make a bad image, right? We never pick up, every time we pick up the camera, we want to make the best image we've ever made in our lives, right? That's not realistic. It's just not possible to do that every single time. So I think we have to take these little steps where we are working hard and creating pretty interesting images like we have on the screen. I would take this shot, absolutely. I would, you know, put it in I would upload it, I would process it. I'd be happy with this shot, but I know that I would want more because that's what I want out of my images. So yeah, so it becomes about process. Yes.
Vicky's just saying that in her hand is a candy cane she had stuck to a sharp. I'm reading the typo. She had stuck to a sharp point candy cane. So, and just going back to the process, it's like you've got to go through the motions of taking pictures. You know, not about this one, but if you're trying to nail a technique or a way of seeing or a way of capturing, like you've got to take intentionally quite boring pictures, one after another. You know the picture's going to be boring. And I think getting over that is quite a big thing, or it can be quite a big thing. Should we go to the next one?
Pictures that you take, you don't, they especially when it's your own personal work, they are just because it's part of the process, and it's every time you take a photograph, you're going to be learning or thinking about something different, and you don't show all of that. No one can see what you've been producing on a daily basis. And even when I don't have a camera with me, you know, if you know that time, you know, sometimes when you go out and think, oh, I forgot my camera, you can still take pictures in your mind.
Do you say click out loud, or is that just me? I do that sometimes.
Do you?
Yeah. That's just weird. I don't think anyone else. Please say if you do that as well. I won't feel quite so weird.
And you said something really interesting. So Alice, I know you're trying to keep us on schedule, and I talk a lot. I'm sorry. But Emma, you brought up something I think that's really important. Is, you know, you said something, and I think that really shows what a seasoned, skilled photographer you are. You just said something that I want to make sure that we sort of talk about, because I think it's huge. And Alice, I know for a fact that you do this too, because I've watched it. Emma, you just said when we pick up our camera, we're thinking about something that we're trying to do. I don't think everyone does that. And I think what happens is sometimes, if we can go back just one image, I think we can end up with, and again, I'm not knocking this image. I think it's a strong image for what it is, right? But I think that if we're not trying to work on something, and we don't have a plan before we pick up our camera, we're going to end up with a lot of reactionary images that it might capture a moment, and that's fine. But did you make a photo? Did you make an image here, right? And I think that, you know, if we go back to the next image, what I like about this image is this photographer made this image, right? Whether it's good or bad, the photographer had a plan and executed it, right? So I admire that about this image. And I think that, you know, Emma, it shows in your work, with how strong your work is, that you have a plan before you pick up your camera. You're not just reacting to stuff, right? And Alice, I know that 100%. You have a plan when you pick up your camera. So I think that's the big difference. And I think that's really important, that to get better, to improve, you have to have some sort of plan and to execute it. And it becomes a self-check, right? So if this photographer's plan was, hey, I want to work on framing through this puddle, A+, they hit it, right? So now how do we get this better? How do we improve this, right? So having a plan, I think, is huge. Sorry, I just wanted to point that out.
And we talk about intentionality. That's the kind of buzzword which we use. I think it just means the same thing. So I just want to say thank you to Anna, who says, I do that all the time when I'm without my camera. Sometimes I really like it, and that's the click thing.
I remember you told me that you say the word click. I was like, what the hell is wrong with you? You don't have to say click.
You just keep it inside. I'm just saying it out now. And then we talked with, I wasn't doing an interview, Emma and Antonina talked to Helen Bartlett, a UK film photographer, about sketching, I think. And Helen likes to sketch she takes a small pocket camera out and kind of sketches photographs with that. So working on, I guess, anything from framing to mood and so,
just like as an artist, you take a sketchbook, don't you, to prep? And I remember I was talking to an artist recently, and she says she lies on the sofa or whatever she's doing in the evening and sketches every evening, whatever's in front of her, and she'll sketch, because there's always, you can always improve, subtle improvements, and hone your skills. And like I said before, you don't even need your camera with you. You can be thinking about it in your head. What would my exposure be? Oh, and like, oh, that's lovely light. What would happen here? How, yeah, oh, that's a good moment. And you're just always thinking about things and how, what you could do, even if you haven't got it with you. You can be working that photographic part of your brain.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about that is I bought this Ricoh GR3, which I love. It's small, like this is smaller than my phone. Right?
I thought you were holding your phone up, actually.
It's smaller than my phone, and it has a huge sensor. It is an amazing camera. So this is my sketch camera. And what's interesting about what you're saying is, with this, I create work that it doesn't look like my work, in my opinion. I think that I'm just trying stuff a lot of times with this camera. I'm out there just trying different concepts and different ideas that I would never normally do. But because I have my little, and somehow I forgive myself. I just say, that's okay. And sometimes I like the images that I take, right? I really, like, I've created, I think, some okay images out of this camera. So it's an interesting concept, and it leads to work that it kind of expands on the idea of what your voice might be. So I think I'm in a phase now after 18 years where I felt like I had my voice now down. I'm in a phase right now where I feel like I'm starting to open up a little bit more. And a lot of it has to do with me picking up this camera.
It's interesting. I think having new equipment, whatever it is, can, it changes your perspective on either how you work or what you're seeing. And I love going back through my volumes of archives and seeing, and you can really see what, you were saying, that intentionality and what interests you at the time. I can really see, going back, what it is that I was focused on at the time, and what, and you can see those sort of learning jumps where you've nailed something down and then you move on to something else. And it might be, like you said, framing or lines or something like that. But I know at the moment, in the last year or so, I've been really working on more complex frames and multiple people, whereas I used to try and narrow my field of vision so that I'd make a really clean image with just the person, like the 2 or 3 people that I thought were what it was about. And I kind of realized that actually there's beyond that other people, even if they're not related to me or who it is, can add more to a frame, and building more interest in that way, a bit like you were talking about on this image, that you can add other things in, like a car splash or something. That's sort of that for me. I can really tell that I'm really interested at the moment in having trying to make sense of a scene with lots of people.
Absolutely agree with you. That's like it's like my favorite thing to do in documentary photography.
Yeah.
It's easy. I think you're mostly weddings, aren't you, Chuck? I guess when you shoot weddings, you have a lot of opportunity to do that.
Yes.
Families, sometimes you get a booking and they've got one baby and you're like, oh, great, but you're not really going to get those let's got 5 dogs as well. Really interesting compositions.
I love it when you've got a family with a menagerie of children and pets, and the grandparents live there, and
chaos just ensues. And Jo says that she storyboards in her journal as well as saying click, and Vicky says she doesn't say click, but she must get a look on her face when she sees a good photo because her kids laugh and say, go and get your camera, mum. I love that you can see on someone's face that they can see a photograph. Maybe you do that kind of one eye sort of squinting.
I think my kids know as well, because my son, I must have a face, because he'll suddenly go, I'm off, because he knows.
Oh, mine does that.
Maybe I start angling my body to go and get the camera, and he starts angling his body to go out of the door.
I think my son can recognise the sound of the zip I'm doing on my camera bag. So I was going to get my 24. He was on the trampoline. He'll definitely let me photograph him now. And he heard the zip, and he was like, he came in. I was like, don't come in. It's going to get you. Should we look at the next one?
Yes. Emma, do you want to go first? I can happily go first too. I mean, I don't want to I chat too much. I talk too
I mean,
much.
we talked about light a lot, haven't we? And I guess,
and this is another one where it's a light driven image.
I would go in smaller on this one.
I think so, but also it's like you've got a tilt here that needs straightening. We were talking about straightening. I feel like this should be straightened. Let me.
So one of the things where you've got really strong lighting, so we talked about how your eye is going to go to that part of the image. So we've got a really bright top of the window and top of the head, the most beautiful light on the side of the face and the cheek and the nose, and that chubby arm is beautiful, and that light is gorgeous. But you look at the top half because it's really bright, and you don't look at what is the most interesting part of the image until second. So if we get rid of those bits, like I would actually maybe even turn it a bit. So you chop off the bright foreheads.
Alice, I just want to chime in real quick. I think that everyone sort of understands this, but I think that we should be clear. Like when we're doing radical crops like this, we're not suggesting that you crop like this. We suggest that when you're shooting this, take your steps in so it's framed like this, right? So just want to be really clear on that, because I think that happened to me before. Someone just started cropping their work crazy, and they're like, you said to crop. I'm like, no, move your feet.
Yeah, that's a really, really good. Yeah, I remember thinking, are you really saying you should crop that much? And it's all about next time, perhaps see it this way.
Right, take a step in, take one full step in and get this framing is what Alice is saying.
It's a really valuable thing to do, actually. So obviously you want to try and get it right in camera, and there's minimal things that you might need to tidy up on the edges if you've not paid attention, but it is really interesting cropping and doing dramatic crops after the fact, because it helps you see what you could have seen, and occasionally like this, maybe you didn't see it then, but going back through, you see it afterwards.
I think what you were saying about looking at your old pictures, I think sometimes subconsciously you see it.
Yeah.
But you're not quite aware of it. But I think a bit of your brain knows that that's the photo in there. I tell myself that sometimes.
Yeah, but I think sometimes you're just not, things happen quickly. You're not in the right place at the right time. You haven't got the right lens, and things happen. And sometimes you just take a shot because your mind does know that there's something there, but you just haven't got time or the sense to do it at that point. And it's not wrong to go back to think, it's not wrong to go back through and look and analyse and learn in an after the fact way, as well as the actual process of doing the photography and taking the pictures. Learning by looking back, it's a bit like having a critique. It's self-critiquing and looking at how better. And sometimes there is a reason for it as well. Obviously it's not what you should be doing ideally.
And we said earlier on about not just photographing, not just seeing light and thinking, oh, that's enough. What is it about the light? What's the light doing? Is the light actually relevant? And in this case, the kid is interacting with this picture, which has light behind it, which is making it maybe the kid is just interested in the masking tape, actually.
I think
it might be like the box rather than the present. I think it's the masking, but I think the idea of the picture being taped to the window is that the light is making something that wouldn't be there without that light interesting to the kid, and the kid is then interacting with it. I think he's just likes the masking tape, having said that. But this is potentially a picture where the light is not just aesthetically valuable, but it's actually part of the story as well.
For me, I agree with a lot of what you said for this particular shot here. I would encourage this photographer. For me, this shot here is a silhouette shot for me all day. I would see light like this, like really harsh light like this coming in directly, because that can be hard to manage. You can see what happened with the harsh light here is it creates its unevenness on the face, right? And not that that's the end of the world, but you know, it would be better if it wasn't so harsh and it wasn't that that broken up face, if the face were sort of evenly lit, or one stream was evenly lit. But if right now as it's shot, that really, the crown of the head is where all the eye goes to, right? So it's not on the face. So, you know, for me, I would have a hard time fighting. I wouldn't fight that. I would choose to fight a different battle. If I'm this photographer, I spin almost directly behind the child, and I kind of wait maybe for, like Alice mentioned earlier, about the moment right before or the moment right after, where, you know, the child maybe touches the paint with the finger, and just before they touch, it's like a well-defined silhouette with these beautiful colors on the window. I think that could be,
at this moment in time, if you look here, he's actually got, she, I don't know, has got their hand on the window here, so you're going to have a lovely shape with that.
Yeah.
And at the moment, that hand is kind of growing out of the head, and it's quite distinctive because it's on that white background. The other thing you could do, I think, is come in from this angle and look at the concentration, because the bright light is reflecting onto her face. So you could come in really close to the door window and look that way, so you can see the concentration and the picking of the masking tape.
In terms of exposure, it's perfect exposed for the face and the arm, which is beautiful. Just in terms of where you would go as well, if you went outside, I don't know if you could see through the paper, whether it's white paper and you can't see through it, or you could go high and look down, but that's another way of dealing with really bright light. Just get out of that room and shoot it from the outside or somewhere else. I'd shoot those curls close up with the light on.
Yeah, with that light, yeah, agreed. Because if you expose those curls with the highlight, it'll fall off real nice and dark against that dark background to the right behind them. So that would be really beautiful.
I love the arm, the chubby arm, because that's accentuating an aspect of the kid that's only going to stay for a short amount of time. So I'm getting a bit, I don't know how old babies and kids are now, but maybe like 18 months too. That's such a that age thing, isn't it? Because that just goes. So it's beautiful. We've had a couple more comments. So Rose says, my mind is always buzzing with potential images. I see them everywhere. I have to mentally turn that off. And Barbara's asked an interesting question. May I ask you all why it is so wrong cropping afterwards? Sometimes you don't see things right away, but you can see later while you're working on it.
I'm not averse to cropping. I think it's a really good lesson to and a good way of learning what you could have done in the field. So then you train yourself to see it better next time. But also, I think there really are times where you just can't get the shot because of this where you're standing and where it's happening, and maybe that's a problem with your anticipation or something, like, or you're facing the wrong way and you see it, or you don't have the right lens, or you physically can't move forward because there's a ditch or a road or whatever it is. And so I think there are times where you can do it.
Is there a limit though, like what percentage of the picture is it okay to crop? There's a curvature thing, isn't there?
I'm not saying that I do it, but I don't have a problem. I don't have a real problem with it like some people do.
I never seem to take anything properly straight.
Yeah.
Do you have that? You're like, well, I've never taken a completely straight picture. You always have to give enough wiggle room.
On landscape, I seem to be able to get it fairly straight. But if I shoot portrait, it's like I'm drunk.
Yeah, exactly.
So wonky. I don't know why.
Sorry, I was going to just talk about cropping. I'm sorry. Get Alice. I didn't want to interrupt.
No, I was just going to say there's a curvature thing with cropping, isn't there? I don't know what difference a lens makes, but there's a thing where if you crop and you don't crop in the middle, you lose the curvature on one side but not the other side, and it looks a bit weird. I think some lenses it's going to matter more than others, but there is a risk with cropping that you kind of mess up the lines and things.
Yeah, that makes sense. For me, I'm not anti-cropping, but for me, it depends on if I'm mentoring a student, or if we're working on an assignment. I do not want a heavy crop because I want to see, right? I want to see what the photographer was seeing in that time.
Intentionality.
Right? That's right. If we like that, the first image is a great example. if that were my student, I would not want to see the final crop, because that would tell me that that photographer in the moment was seeing the simplicity of it, right? So I don't want to see a lot of cropping in images of students that I'm mentoring. For a finished portfolio piece, absolutely. Crop those little things away if you see something after the fact, no doubt. But for me, it comes down to intent, right? That's what we all want to fancy ourselves as being intentional, skilled photographers, right? That's what we want to do, right? Well, if we're going to be that, we have to walk the walk, right? So we should be seeing those things in the moment. That's not to say we don't see everything in every moment. We don't. I know I don't. And sometimes I do see things after the fact, and sometimes I will crop for that. But I think there's a big difference between somebody who has been at it for a long time versus somebody who might be just starting out. If you're just starting out, I would really encourage you to not crop to save your images. Of course you can, but if you're going to become a skilled, intentional photographer, you have to make those decisions in the moment.
It's a really good exercise, actually, especially if you're transitioning to documentary, to force yourself to get the framing right in camera and say, I'm not going to crop this afterwards. And the more and more and more you shoot like that, if you do that for a whole week, then it's just going to go in. Looking at frames and looking at edges as you're shooting will just go in. It takes a while to see edges as you're shooting. We've had a couple of comments that Antonina and Becca both say they can't get lines straight. So I think
we can't get lines straight. We're shooting square scenes with a round lens. It's distortion is inevitable. You can't, right? So 100%.
Okay, should we go on to is there anything else to say? I'm just conscious of time and fitting more in.
Yeah, I think we'll probably fit a couple more pictures in.
So I really enjoy this. This is cool. And again, this is, Alice talked earlier, I keep hitting on what she said, but timing is a huge part of documentary photography, and the timing of this is excellent. That's the first thing I noticed here. The next thing I noticed is, again, we're going to talk action reaction. When we're talking about a layered scene and layers in a scene and multiple elements in a scene, I think that things like why is this thing there, right? Or why is this person here? And this question is answered very easily for me, right? Every element that's in this frame is there for a reason. It contributes to the story. So that's really good storytelling here. Great anticipation, great timing. I really, really enjoy that. And what happens here, again, if we want to talk, Emma, can you draw, if it's too much trouble, I don't want you to get locked in to where you can't get out of the things. Don't draw them vertically, draw them horizontally this time.
So okay, that's interesting, because I was going to say the same, I think I'm going to say the same thing. If you do your thirds, there's not that much happening in this bottom third.
Correct. Yep. So, and we can fix that really easily, right? Yeah. Like this image is an easy fix for that. So you're right on it, Emma. Visual weight. I don't mind it so much on this. Like if this stayed uncropped, it's not the end of the world for me.
There's nothing distracting in this bottom. The other one had distracting elements in it, so
That's exactly right.
A sort of double negative. Whereas this is just it's not adding anything, and it's the balance is slightly.
It's not taking away either, right?
I wonder if
it's at the top, and there's no reason for the negative space. I feel like I don't know.
Do you think the photographer is being really careful to be able to view the lower child's face and is perhaps leaning on the floor because the shutter's quite low? The ISO probably, could go up, but maybe they wanted to keep the shutter low, perhaps to capture the movement of the top kid, and is leaning on the floor.
They must be on the floor.
So if you move the camera higher up, you're going to get more bubble.
No.
I'm terrible at having to.
You don't have to lift the camera, you just tilt.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest lifting the camera. I love where the photographer is. Yeah. I would suggest the exact crop that Emma has on the frame. Just move in just a bit.
But what about the symmetry? Because the sofa, which is lovely, so I really, really like the symmetry, and that's making me go, oh, I don't like the symmetry. And why are we keeping the shoes in? But
so for me, they add visual balance to the things that are happening here, and the colour tone works with all of these different elements. And if you look at things like the more complex compositional tools, I don't know how I can draw them on, like, how do you do it? You know, that sort of line there, and then the intersection points there. Then you start getting, like, you know, really nice positions on the legs here, the shoes here, and this person here in the middle. I don't know, I feel like...
Would you go portrait on this one?
I think then you'd still get that
the top on it.
The other thing that can happen too, I wouldn't go portrait, only because I think you would introduce a whole bunch of brightness up top.
Yeah, actually.
That I wouldn't like a whole lot. The other thing that you could possibly do too, and Emma, can you do a square crop?
Just while you're doing that, Becca says, yes, I was worried I wouldn't get them both in. I am lying on the floor. Yeah.
So if you did a square crop, to me, I think this makes the scene a little more boring. I like the shoes in it. I like that balance, but you know, if for whatever reason the shoes bother you, you've really boiled this frame down to, and I like doing that. One of the things, you know, I talked about really enjoying busy scenes, really enjoying a lot of things. Sometimes it's overwhelming. So when that happens and photographers are having a hard time seeing whole scenes, I think this isn't my term. I think this comes from Sam Abel. He talks about micro-composing. So where you sort of just strip it down to the essential story of the frame. And that's always like a safety net for me. You know, I in my personal work, I take a lot of risks for obvious reason. You know, I don't shoot family documentary for money. It's only personal work for me. My moneymaker are my weddings. So in wedding work, when I can't, it happens all the time. I see like a big scene and I have great plans in my head of how I'm going to balance all this stuff out. And when I can't do it, my safety net is to always sort of micro compose and get to the heart of one of the stories that's happening in the frame. And that's my safety net. So, you know, if you find yourself out there and you're struggling to balance a frame, especially if it's paid work, if it's personal work, be patient and just take the risks. If it's paid work and you have to make an image for your client, then get in and use your safety net by simplifying. So I think a square crop simplifies this down to a very simple action reaction, which I really like and enjoy. And I think a slight crop, just like Emma has here, improves this a whole bunch. It's a really nice image to look at for me.
I like it like this.
I love the position of the kid on top, the fingers out, and it's just it's brilliant. It's just such,
I love it.
It says how old they are so well, that wonky, unstable kind of way of moving.
The thing that I like about it is you can mentally draw the line between their eyes.
This to me is an example of a strong moment. You know, we've been talking a lot so far about, you know, this image has light, but it lacks moment, or this image has moment, but it lacks intent. I think this is a really good example of sort of an image being made. Like this was a very intentional image to me, that this photographer knew what they wanted out of this scene. They chose a composition, and lo and behold, it happened. It happened for them. And so I think that this to me, I'm looking at the image, which is a fun image to look at. But I think that what I'm more excited about looking at is the thought of this photographer applying the same exact concept to more dynamic scenes.
And it's one of those frames where you have two subjects separated by something, and like you said, the action and reaction. And I wonder if the lower child, if they had a stronger reaction, that would for me, that would make it even stronger. The child on top, I don't need to see their face, I don't need to see their emotion and what they're feeling, because everything that kid is doing with its body is just, it's like making the picture. The fingers.
The fact that there's a bit of movement in the, you know, that it makes it. I don't know, it brings more life to the image. But yeah, there's this face. You know, in an ideal world, maybe there'd be a more of a reaction there.
A little bit more.
Doing.
It's a brilliant scene to see.
Sorry, I've whizzed on to the next one just because I'm conscious of time.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, I really like this. This is a very compelling image, very simple, very quiet. And to me, this is an example of
this is where
saying a lot.
This is an image where symmetry is absolutely the right thing to do.
Yep, totally agree. Simplicity to me is really like a key theme to this image here. Everything is sort of monochromatic, down from the clothing to the couch, even the painting. It's really, really easy on the eye. It's really easy to take in. The photographer is hitting us right in the head with where they want us to look, what we should be looking at here. I see in the simplicity and in the symmetry, I also see a triangle. So Emma, if you could just maybe with your marker start from the lower left of the frame, right up to the top of the painting and down to the lower right. Yep.
Sorry.
You get the idea. Yeah. Which to me is really pleasant and beautiful to look at. The choice of black and white, I think, is excellent. Yeah. It really sort of simplifies this scene. I love black and white, so I like most things in black and white, but I think this really calls for a purpose for a black and white here. It adds to the simplicity of it. I love the mirroring of, parent-child up top, parent-child right below it. Yeah, just a lot of really good things.
I also like the fact that this is a mother and child, and it's quite it's a vintage looking painting. It looks like something from, I don't know, last century. So, and in that time, I think probably fathers had less to do with their children, and how, this is something that's happening now today. And what's lovely about it is that it is the father with the child, in contrast to this being the traditional idea of the mother doing the caring.
It's probably too old for it to be a painting of that dad's mum and him, isn't it? Unless it was a sort of vintage.
Really lovely.
That'd be cool. I think also if you look at the cover of the book, the two characters on the cover of the book are looking at a picture of one of the characters.
Not working, sorry.
Oh.
Can you see it again?
So that extra sort of mirroring. No, we can just see the top of their head. Oh, no.
Can you see it at all?
No.
Sorry, let me go back in again.
It's cool.
I could see it. You were just zoomed in very, very heavily.
I can't. Excuse me, my children are shouting.
There you go.
I can't seem to get zoom. Maybe if I do this, hold on.
That works for me. Oh, you want to zoom into the?
I can't zoom in with my mouse for some reason. There you go.
I think that counts as mirroring as well. I love
so Alice, here's the thing, right? So can I ask? So if the photographer didn't mean that, right? Like if the photographer meant that, then for me, I feel like you'd have to hit me over the head more with it. Like I don't know. If the photographer meant it, that's fantastic. I love that. But to me, that personally doesn't add a whole lot here because it's so small in the frame. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. I think once you think this is a picture about shape and simplicity and mirroring, then maybe I kind of start to look for things like that because that's the bit of your brain that's switched on.
Yep.
And I also see that the mum in the picture is maybe reading the book from above, which I kind of quite like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
That's a really interesting point about what's intent. So we talk about intentionality. You can read things into a picture that the photographer didn't mean, but they're there. Yeah. And back to the idea of is it subconsciously intentional, and is that even a thing? Is that?
I was just going to say, that's a great.
We've had this conversation before.
Yeah, that to me is oxymoronic.
I know. Yeah, but
right. But that's a really interesting chat.
I'm fascinated by that. Like, what do we see without being really aware we're seeing it? And back to the thing you said, Emma, about you look at your older work. When I look at my old work, it's terrible, but there's stuff in there that I'm intentionally shooting now. Elements, so.
Yeah.
The other thing I just want to point out this image that I personally really appreciate from my standpoint is one of the things I try to do with my family photography, my family documentary. I talked earlier about kind of wanting to knowing what we want to say before we say it, I think really helps us make deliberate images. So for me, one of the things I personally try to do is to make sort of instantly nostalgic images that are classics as soon as I press the shutter, which is a weird thing, right? Because yes, time has passed, but it's not technically nostalgic at that point, right? So I think it's a real challenge to make instantly nostalgic images. I think there does have to be a bit of, like this image here is a good example of this, in my opinion. It's anachronistic. Like, we don't know when this was taken. This could have been taken 10 years ago, 30 years ago. And it's instantly classic, right? There's really no telling things about the date of this image here. So I really appreciate that about this image, and I think that's a really, again, it hits home with me because it's something I personally tried to do.
I really love this. Sorry, hold on. This is beautiful. Just to hear this little.
Yeah, I love that.
It's gorgeous. So.
Alison says, I love this image. It's a fabulous shot, and it does look like the woman in the painting is looking at the book.
My only gripe is the expression of the man.
He doesn't look like he's reading out loud.
Not quite animated enough. I don't want it really animated because it's a really calm moment, but it's slightly flat.
Maybe they both hate the book. Maybe they're both wrong.
I mean, she's, you can really see she's listening and concentrating. She's holding.
Yeah.
I feel like it's slightly something missing from the expression. Just, when you're talking about elevating it and shooting through and finding the best moment and waiting, and there's just a teeny fraction I think would have made a difference.
And so you're saying about timelessness, you think the black and white adds to that, because we think colour can introduce elements to an image which date the image, and there's been quite a lot of conversation about how that's a good thing in documentary family photography, because you want it to date, you want to capture the time. But if you're going for the timeless look, then black and white is probably the way to go. And you've normally shoot black and white, but you're doing more colour, aren't you now?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Do we want the style of the time to date our images, or do we want the content of the frame to date our images? So, if you look at color photography, the history of color photography 50 years ago looks nothing like color photography today. And color photography in 50 years from now is not going to look anything like it does today. Color photography in 2022 might look different. We see all the different styles. So for me, do I want to be stylistically dated, or do I want the content of my frame to put the date on the image? So I think that's an interesting thing to talk about in terms of color versus black and white. So, I don't want a style to define my work. I want the content of my frame to define my work.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's really important that, you were talking about including and excluding, and you're consciously making decisions of what to put in the frame and what to leave out of the frame. It's all about which things add to the story, or what you're trying to say, or the message that you're trying to put across. So including things like, that can be negative space or a busy frame, whatever it is, but all the details. And I think there's some things that, I think one of the lovely things about what you put into a frame is that it can tell you intangible things, like what year it is, what season it is, whether it's hot or cold. And so there's just some of it can be gestural, or it can be something in the background or foreground. But I mean, here, like if this was in colour, you'd see more clearly that she's got some Disney character or something on her t-shirt, which would bring it into this time. Whereas in black and white, you don't notice that. So it does change the picture slightly.
Oh, she's got an Elsa dress on, hasn't
It
she?
looks like
Actually,
Elsa. Yeah, it looks like an Elsa something or other Elsa, which is interesting in itself because they're reading some sort of Disney Mickey Mouse character from long
Yeah.
ago.
It was like an older book as well. So maybe that's his childhood. He's reading to her while she's dressed in the contemporary
Quite a
Disney
nice detail
underneath a very retro picture.
Yeah, which is really lovely details. I mean, this could be a family heirloom that's older than the book, and then she's in the 21st century, popular character.
I think what's interesting is if that was in colour, that would be readable very quickly, the 3-generation thing, and it isn't. So I love the black and white, the tone, the impact, but maybe I would prefer it in colour. Now we've
black and white, I think it changes it, and neither's right nor wrong. It's a personal choice thing, but I think there's elements of the story that may be more readable or stronger if it was in colour, but maybe you wouldn't have this same mood, which is so is lovely and appropriate. So I think that's.
Can I point out something that I think, from a technical standpoint, that I think is I would definitely encourage to continue. So I can I can see all the metadata on the frame about the photographer. This was shot at 33 millimeters at ISO 1600. 2.8. I love that this photographer is shooting at 1/40th of a second. I love it because if you are conscious, you can easily handhold 1/40th of a second. That's not even that slow of a shutter speed.
You can.
No, you can. I'm talking to you, Alice. You hear me.
I know you are.
This is for you. So what I love that happens is, again, I look at countless photography books, and if you look back at when film used to be shot, right, you'll see a lot of imperfect images because the photographer was really limited by the speed of the film. They had to alter their shutter speed. That was the only thing left. They've opened their aperture as far as they could, just like this photographer, right? And you can't just manually go up to ISO 12,000, right? You could have probably only gone to ISO 1600 back in the day and it'd be really grainy, right? So, but what we miss a little bit sometimes by being able to shoot at such high ISOs with our modern cameras, and I love it, don't get me wrong, but I think sometimes our work can become sterile and lack character. So this photographer stayed still and there's no movement, right? So this is a very static scene, but shooting at 1/40th isn't that slow. You can really get a little bit of a dynamic edge, a little bit of movement, a little bit of blur in your images. So I just would encourage this photographer, keep driving at that, and your images will have a little soul to them. They become living and breathing at that point. So that's just something that I just picked up I just looked at the technicals. So we don't have to shoot everything at 1/200th of a second. We can have a little blur in our images. If your content's strong, that blur won't matter, I promise.
Like the previous one, don't want to go backwards too long, but the sofa girls, the blur in the fingers and the toe, I think that was 160th.
And I think that adds to the image.
I totally
100%.
Yeah.
Right. So we should be shooting it at slower shutter speeds.
I think we can probably fit one more.
Do you want to look at the grid and choose?
Oh man, I don't want anyone hating me. You choose. You choose.
I'm going to put up the whole grid and then
go for a bit longer.
Oh, hold on. Have I done the same thing? Hold on a second.
Oh, are they? I don't know if Antonina's. Are they in the order that they were sent in? Because maybe we should do them in priority. We should do them in that order then.
Can you see what
first come first serve?
Can you see the thing with the grid now?
I can see the grid. Yeah.
Okay. So have you got a preference? So we've done the top row and these two.
Oh man, don't make me pick. I don't want anyone saying, "Oh, Chuck picked and he didn't pick mine."
So
it looks like there's some really good stuff here. I mean, the next image looks like a nice busy scene, maybe with a new baby. The scene after that looks like maybe a birthday party. Nice.
So you can see it larger. Let's go. Let me. Hold on. I need to go back onto it.
I think I have one that we want to maybe talk about. I think so.
Okay, let me. Right, so let me scroll through. That one. That one. Okay.
Great light in that last one.
Yeah.
And just talking about lighting the bit that's relevant to the story on the finger.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there any particular one that you wanted to choose from this? So,
Yeah, the scene with the two boys.
this one?
Yeah. So I picked this one because I kind of talked earlier about, what I sort of, maybe I'm just kind of picking this because this is what resonates with just me. And I think that's something to keep in mind too, is that I picked this because it resonates with me. Like anyone out there who's getting into this thing and trying to understand it, you have to pick things that you enjoy, that catch your eye, and shoot the way that you want to shoot. I think that can't be understated. I think that you really have to do things your own way. It's important to learn a process and then to figure things out from there on your own in a lot of ways, right? So, for me, what I like when scenes are layered, right? I like when there's multiple things happening. I think that's really the essence of storytelling sometimes. And I think that as photographers and storytellers, I think that it's our job to sort of find these stories and find the elements and then put them in an arrangement to where we're trying to say something with our image, right? So this clicks with me because I have 3 sons at home. And for a while I had 4 boys in the house with my nephew. So this is very typical. And my boys are pretty different from one to the next, right? So, one kid is a little bit artistic. Another of my sons, 2 of my other sons are pretty athletic. So I have differences in my house of how they are. My kids are very different from one another. So, for me, I kind of like this one because the photographer is sort of saying they're juxtaposing, they're using layers as a juxtaposition. And I think that that's a real great way to tell a story. So, again,
I totally agree. One of the things I'm obsessed with, I think having 3 kids that are different, like you, I'm obsessed with observing their differences within the same environment. Because one thing about siblings, I think, is that they kind of forget they have different sense of personal space with each other than with like anyone else.
With normal people.
Normal people, yeah. So, and observing the way they inhabit a space together and differently, that reflects their personalities and their age and their relationship, is something really interesting to me. And I think this picture does a really good job of that. And just having two subjects, if there's more, it's even more interesting. Doing different things there's one story, and then there's of the whole frame, and then there's a different story that each of them, the story of each boy. So you're just adding layers of story.
I love how they're facing the same way and how the scissors kind of mirror the legs.
Yeah.
But what I really love is that the kid who's sitting still, being very still and quiet, has got really messy hair.
I was just going to say,
and the kid that's jumping about has got really neat hair. It's like, I'm kind of
just going to say the same thing. He's got, he looks like he's just got out of bed, doesn't he, this one?
Yeah, it's like a juxtaposition in every possible way, right? So standing versus sitting, scissors or art and a ball for sport, messy hair, clean hair, right? So it's like a juxtaposition in every way.
He's sitting quite neatly, and this one, it's like the limbs are all over the place.
And the talking about timing again, it's perfect. The scissors open, the legs at the ball, it's absolutely perfect. So in terms of I just want to interrupt to say we're going to look at the last one again, because that was one of the first ones that was sent in, if that's okay with time.
Can I add one thing to this real quick, Alice? Sorry. So one thing I teach in my course is something called figure to ground. And this image has it really, really well on both figures, right? If you look at the boy on the far left, he's dark, background's light. Boy on the right, dark, background is light. And they pop out real easy, super easy to digest. And all the key elements, the scissor and the ball, have strong.
They're all good against the background.
Every element of this frame is easily digestible. Thanks,
and the line of the shadow going along the line of the floor as well. I love the shapes in it. talking about transforming, I don't think this needs to be straightened in my eye. I think
with the way that the boy is the way that the boy is leaning goes where the camera's leaning off to that direction.
Yeah, really strong. Really strong.
One thing to make this perhaps strong is I think that it's possibly been underexposed or been lightened. The shadows have come up a little bit too much in processing. I can kind of see the processing in it a little bit more than I would like to. So you've obviously got great light coming in the right. Oops, I just knocked something over. Great light coming in the right from behind the boy with the ball, but there's also light coming from the left. So if it was exposed less, I don't think you would need to bring it up so much. Go with the natural light in it.
Shall I flick to the last image now so we can go on to that one? Yeah. Is this bigger than it?
So the light's fantastic in this image here. I really beautiful light. So I'm going to give this a critique, and I'm kind of talking to myself here too, because I definitely can stand to benefit from doing what I'm about to tell someone else to do. I don't think I do this enough as a photographer. So fantastic light, great recognition of this scene. I love the placement of the figures here, right? Again, if we're talking figure to ground, to me, this image here is about two elements: the point and the girl standing, right? To me, this image is about two elements. And for me, exactly. So it's about two elements for me in this picture here. So,
would you?
That's exactly right. What I was going to suggest is, and this is, so one of I think my shortcomings as a photographer is I tend to be a little bit too literal. I would have likely shot this scene exactly how the photographer shot this scene. Okay, I would have likely done that the same exact way. What I hope I would have done is the crop that Emma had here. Emma, I would go a little bit tighter. Can you take the bottom left?
This.
Bottom right, I'm sorry, bottom right.
Let me just clear it and do it again.
I would just make it tighter.
Because, like you were talking about figure to ground, you really don't, partly the dynamic light and the figure, the contrast of the figure to the subject in the background. That's what we mean when we're talking figure to ground. Absolutely.
Separation from the background.
You don't see her, but the angle of the hand, the arm, is lovely. It's really dynamic. It's coming into the photo somehow, and it's accentuated by the light. Like this?
Yeah, just to like pretty much to the edge of the girl's shoulder, even. Yeah, like something like a tight, tension-filled frame almost. Like, the fingers, like that finger's kind of,
that makes sense. Having her, the edge.
Everything's cropped. With
her shoulder, her legs, and her head seems to make this arm make more sense. It's not just a limb. It's a great tension where you then pulls you into. When you think of a frame, when you're looking at the world, you're looking at. I mean, you've got like a 180-degree vision, even though some of it's peripheral. When you're looking for a camera, you're just taking a tiny little rectangle or square of that scene, and sometimes thinking about the edges like this, where you've actually just slightly you've enclosed the frame and tightened it. It actually makes your brain think beyond the frame.
That's a great point. I mean, that's exactly where I was going with this. I was going to say, one of the things I think that gets missing from documentary photography is a sense of mystery and the unknown, because our job is to show exactly is to show the scene, right? We're supposed to be storytellers. We're supposed to tell what happens. So we get trained. And again, this is me talking to myself here, because I don't think I'm particularly good at this. So I feel like I shouldn't really be giving this critique, because I don't do this well. But I want to do this well. I want to add an element of mystery to my work. And I think this crop, same exact scene, the photographer would have just had to take one step forward to get this exact scene here, which I think is beautiful.
Gorgeous, because the light is beautiful on their skin tone. And it's not, it's really lovely. It's not overexposed at all. They've shot at a relatively low ISO because they've got really strong light, quite fast shutter speed, but they've got a high aperture, which is great because you still see the background.
Yep.
It's lovely because it's telling you about the background, but it's recessed because of the light difference.
Yeah, no, I really dig this. I dig the moment. You know, again, as a critique, take a step in, right? Like see the scene see the story within the story. And again, I'm like gonna like mentally staple that into my own brain so I remember that myself next time I shoot.
Yeah, this is lovely.
It'd be nice when we can actually get a bit closer again to people.
Mm.
I know most of us tend not to use Zoom and to use primes and, you know, focus with your feet. It'd be nice when we actually can get in a bit closer. Shall we leave it there? I'm so sorry we haven't
managed all of them.
time to go through everything.
It's getting dark now. Right, so thank you very much, Chuck, as well. That was great, and hope everyone enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for sending your pictures in.
Yeah.
So Sassy says, it's so interesting. I was trained in film and always reminded to keep headroom and give people space. So I find it really hard to cut into people, but the crop made so much sense. There's something about chopping someone's head off.
I hear that a lot.
little bit wrong sometimes.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
But then you've got to do it purposely. You can't just chopped off legs dangling in for no reason. Doesn't make sense. You've got to think about why it's there.
So what you include, what you exclude, timing, intentionality,
all of those things.
framing.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll make someone a stronger photographer. That's for sure.
And I think going back to the thing you talked about, the process, just keep doing it to go through the process.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Like, you know, I guess I have the luxury of having done this for an extremely long time. You know, if you're out there and you're just getting started, the only way to really get better at this thing is to just do the work. Just really do the work. Dive in and do the work. Just keep grinding. It doesn't happen overnight. You're going to climb like this. You're going to hit a valley, and then you might even regress a little bit. Yeah. But if you keep at it, I promise that if you keep at it with intent, if you just go out to just take snapshots all the time, you're going to end up with just snapshots. But if you are intentional about what you shoot and you do it for a period of time, the ever elusive voice will start to talk, and you'll start to hear things about your work like, I knew this was your picture before I saw it was even your name, because that is you showing that you have a voice. So anyway, that's just my quick bit. So keep at it. Thanks for sharing your images with me. And it was an honor to be here with you ladies. And I just want to say here too, the four of you are doing such a great job with this group. It's such a nice little great space. And I know that there's great things to come, and I wish you all the best, and I hope it goes fantastic, because you four are great people and it's a great community. So keep up the great work. I love being a small
We've
part.
had lots of thank yous, learned so much, really enjoyed this, really interesting, so much education in from everyone. So thank you, and thanks for being kind about the group. We're at an exciting phase. We just rebranded, so I've still got RLPA in my head a little bit, but we are now made for documentary, and it's just the beginning. We think documentary is the future of family photography, and we're sort of here to fly the flag for that, and we want to help educate people and help spread the word. So thanks everyone for taking part. Thanks, Chuck. So shall we sign off?
Chuck, and goodbye everybody. We'll see you again soon. That should be off now. I'm going to stop the recording. Oh, do I